Good morning and thanks for being with us on this Monday morning. I'm Heather Abraham. Hope you had a great weekend. Can you believe it's the last day of April? Looks like it's also the end of our winter weather, thankfully. Starting to warm up and we could hit 80 degrees this week. We'll get all those details, those welcome details from meteorologist Ron Smiley in just a bit. First, though, we are talking with our first guest about his look at the life of iconic singer, dancer, actor, comic, and trailblazing entertainer Sammy Davis Jr. Sam Pollard's award-winning documentary, I've Gotta Be Me, is a featured film at this year's J Film Festival going on right now in Pittsburgh. Sam is in town for the screening. He met with the audience at its Pittsburgh premiere last night, and he's meeting with area students interested in film today. And we are honored to have him here with us this morning. We want to say a big welcome to filmmaker director Sam Pollard.
Thank you, Heather.
Thanks for being here with us this morning.
My pleasure.
So how did the screening go last night?
It was great. You know, we had a pretty much full house, and it was a great Q&A with Catherine, the director of the festival. So it was a really good screening.
So how did you get on board with this documentary?
Originally, it was done for a series on PBS called American Masters, and the executive producer Michael Cantor asked me to come in and take over for a director who had originally been assigned to do the film, and I was going to originally edit the film, but then I took over as director of the film. I had done previous American Masters, so for me it was a great honor and a pleasure to do this film because I grew up being a major Sammy Davis fan.
Well, so tell me, did you find anything interesting, something you didn't expect to learn about him while you were making this?
You know, every time I do a documentary, I learn a lot about people I think I knew something about.
Right.
So in the case of Sammy, we were given access to his family archive. And there were some audio tapes in there that he had done for his first autobiography, Yes, I Can. And in one of those audio tapes that we found, he talked about his disappointment at being rejected by John Kennedy and the Kennedy family when Kennedy was, voted in as president of the United States, and how they wouldn't let him go to the inaugural ball. And he was very hurt, very pained. So that was a revelation for me to hear that for the first time. One of the other things that I thought was revelatory was when we were going through the archival material, the footage, there was this wonderful moment when Sammy from a 1950s television show was dancing with two drummers, and he was just soaring all over the place. He was phenomenal. And I always thought he was a great dancer, but he was impeccable, absolutely impeccable. So those are the kind of things that you find when you're starting to research and put the script together and look for people to interview when you're doing a documentary.
Those little moments. Well, so tell me about his insecurities, because he's been on the stage, he was on the stage since he was very young, 3 or 4 years old.
That's right.
But that kind of led to him being a little bit vulnerable in a way.
Well, you know, a lot of performers, they love the idea of being in front of a crowd. It makes them feel good, it makes them feel wanted. And he could go on the stage, and even though he was supposed to do maybe a 40-minute set, he could do an hour-and-a-half set. He needed the adulation of an audience. He needed that sort of affirmation all the time. And when he got off that stage, Sammy was a lonely man. You know, he felt lonely. He felt like, you know, he didn't have anybody to support him. So when he would leave his performances, he would go back to his hotel. He would invite the people over, his cast members, if he was doing a Broadway show like Golden Boy. He would invite them over for a party all night. He just needed to be surrounded by people. He did not like to be alone.
Well, so let's talk about that and how the color of his skin kind of played a part in that struggle, that affirmation, because he wanted to be accepted, but at some times people said that he was, what was the word that you used, a sellout to his race.
Well, think of it this way. He grew up during the period of segregation and Jim Crow in America.
Right.
There were times when him and his father and his uncle could not, had to ride in the back of the bus. They couldn't go into certain restaurants. They couldn't go and stay in certain hotels. So he had to deal with that. And then as a young man, he went into the Army, and he had to deal with deal with white servicemen, spitting on him, painting him white, peeing on him. I mean, they had to do all this. They did all these horrific things to him. Right. And so here he was struggling to find himself, struggling to become a success. And then when he becomes a success and he gets accepted by a white audience, the people in the black community start to feel like he forgot where he came from. So because they see him associating with people like Kim Novak, he marries a white woman, My Britt, he's hanging out with Sinatra and Dean Martin and Joy Bishop, so he's sort of having to deal with both sides of the world, the black world and the white world. And then it reaches a real, very intense moment in 1972 when he hugs Richard Nixon.
Right, I was going to bring
And
that
when
up.
he hugs Richard Nixon, the black community is appalled. Appalled. Because how could he hug this man who basically his whole mantra is law and order, which is against basically the black community. So Sammy always had to deal with this notion of where was he, how could he feel accepted by the white community, and how could he feel accepted by the black community? And he was walking this sort of very tricky, balancing act.
And did he ever find the balance?
I think, like a lot of human beings, as he got older and he started to sort of settle down and his career sort of, reached this apex and was flattening out, I think he started to feel a little more comfortable with himself, maybe just a little.
Yeah. Well, so tell me what went into making this documentary. How much, you were talking about some of the footage you were going through. How long did it take to go through all that stuff?
Well, the production started about 2.5 years ago. Took about a year to shoot it and about 8 months to edit. And there's so much wonderful archival footage of Sammy Davis Jr. On the Ed Sullivan Show, on Hollywood Palace, with Sinatra and Dean, the Rat Pack movies, Ocean's 11, him touring around the world. There was so much footage to cull through that it almost sometimes felt overwhelming.
I'm sure.
Overwhelming. But we were able to kind of find those moments, to pull them out, to really make this film impactful. And the other thing that we had, that was very advantageous for us, we had a wonderful gentleman named Larry Maslin, who was our writer, who helped us figure out the structure of the film. So we didn't try to structure it chronologically, but more thematically. So we talked about him as a dancer, as a singer, as an impressionist, as a comic, as a political person, activist. Because a lot of people don't know that Sammy was very politically active in the 60s. He gave a lot of money to Dr. Martin Luther King and to the civil rights movement. And he was even though he was a reluctant activist, he was an activist.
Right. Well, and you had the screening last night. You're going to be talking with kids today. Tell us about what you have planned later this morning. Well,
we're going to show it to some high school kids this morning, and then we'll do a Q&A. And I'm always surprised that there's maybe a few of these kids who will remember Sammy Davis Jr. because most won't. So it'll be a nice sort of like opening for them to say, oh, here's someone that we didn't know about. And I think it's always important for young people to realize there's a history of America. There's a history of talent like Sammy Davis Jr. that they should be aware of. Like when I was a young man, there were certain people I didn't really care about. And then as I got older, I started to investigate more and learn more, And if you're curious and open yourself up, you can learn a lot in this world.
Right. Well, like your work with August Wilson, can you talk about that?
Well, that was another great pleasure for me to be able to come here to Pittsburgh, to go into where he lived, the Hill District, to really dig into his plays like Ma Rainey's Black Bottom, Joe Turner's Come and Gone, Jim of the Ocean, to talk and to really learn what made August Wilson tick. And the fact that what he did as a playwright was to go into his community and say, I want to present them to you, warts and all, And one of the other things that was wonderful for me about that, working on that documentary, was I got to meet and interview a lot of the actors, like Viola Davis, like Lawrence Fishburne, who had been in his plays, and talked about reading his work and interacting with August.
I think what's so interesting about documentaries and about what you do is there's so much more to a person than just a name or what you see on the screen or on the stage. And that has to be difficult to tell some of those stories sometimes, but you find great passion in it.
Because to me, what I like about life is that it's pretty much very complicated.
Right.
And when you're able to find those complexities in a person's life, it can make for a more enriching film. And I always look forward for the next project that I can delve into and jump into and tackle.
Do you know what that is yet?
I'm working on a series now that I started shooting a few weeks ago for Alex Gibney, a well-known documentarian, and Steven Spielberg, a 6-part series for the Discovery Channel called Why We Hate. That's going to look at the aspects of hate in different forms, tribalism, mass, genocide, the origins of hate, the tools of hate. We're going to really dig into that too, also. Very interesting. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy schedule to be with us this morning. Sammy Davis Jr., I Gotta Be Me is one of 20 films at this year's 25th anniversary J Film Festival. You see it on May 3rd. The entire festival runs through May 6th at various theaters around town. You can look for a full list of all the films, showtimes, events, and locations at kdka.com/PTL.